5.5, add and subtract fractions, homework and practice. This is page 223. It says, find the sum or difference, write your answer in simplest form. So it wants us to add and subtract these fractions with unlike denominators, and then we're going to have to write our answer in simplest form. That means the smallest fraction possible. And it says 1/5, number one is 1/5 plus 1/2. Now, I see a lot of kids who try to do 1/5 plus 1/2, and they just like to add across. The 1 plus 1, the numerators is 2, and then 5 plus 2, the denominators is 7, and then you want to write 2/7. You cannot add and subtract fractions where the denominators, the bottom numbers, are not the same number. So what you have to do is you have to find a fraction with the denominator that has the same number, okay? So there's two different ways you can do this. I've always taught you to go ahead and write out your multiples of your denominators and find the least common multiple. You can do it that way, or you can just simply multiply the denominators across each other. 5 times 2 would be 10. But that technique does specifically work for number one, but it doesn't always work for all the problems because there's always the least common multiple smaller number somewhere, okay? So this first one, I went ahead and wrote it out, 1/5 plus 1/2. You know, I like to do my squares here. I write out my equation here. I like to write out my multiples here and find my least common multiple. Here I rewrite my equation, and this is for my answer, okay? So I already said that it's going to be 10 here, but for us to be able to prove that, I'm going to go ahead and just do the steps. Sometimes it's easier if you just do the steps, okay? Step 1, write your equation out. Step 2, write out your multiples for 2 and 5. I always like to start with the smallest number first. It doesn't matter if you do the 5 first or the 2 first. I've always liked to do just the smaller number first, okay? So multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I can keep going, but I'm going to stop there. And then for 5, I have 5, 10, 15, 20. Now, if I would have kept going with the 2 and I would have gone all the way up to like 20. That is a common multiple. But we're looking for the least common multiple, and here it is 10, okay? So I've taught you to circle it and then write it here. Because we know now that we have to find an equivalent fraction for 1/5 with a denominator of 10. 10 is going to be our common denominator here and here, okay? So I like to do this. I know I'm going to add like this, and I'm going to get my answer here, okay? But somehow this 5 became this 10. Well, either you know 5 times 2 is 10, or you can come back down here and count 1, 2. So I'm going to multiply the denominator, the bottom number, by 2, and the numerator by 2. What you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top as well. So 5 times 2 is 10, 1 times 2 is 2, okay? And then here, this 2 has to become a 10. Well, how many times can 2 go into 10? You either automatically know that it's 5 times, or you can come down here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So we need to multiply this denominator by 5. What you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator, 2 times 5, 1 times 5. Usually I use a different color here so you can see. So 1 times 5 is 5. We already wrote 2 times 5 is 10. And all you do is add across. You're not going to do 10 plus 10 is 20 here, okay? Your denominator stays the same. It is consistent throughout the whole problem, okay? And then 2 plus 5 is 7. So your answer is 7/10, and it is in its simplest form. How do I know that? Because 7 cannot go into 10, and 7 is a prime number. Anytime you have a prime number in your numerator, it's already in its simplest form. So your answer for number 1 is 7/10. And then number 2 on here is 2/3 plus 1/6. I already have my problem written out. I can write out my multiples here, rewrite it here, and put my answer here. Now, this is where you have to ask yourself, this is another way you can do it. You can do 3 times 6 is 18, and that can be a common denominator, but you're looking for your least common multiple here. So you ask yourself, can 3 go into 6? Can 3 go into 6 evenly? It can. So already I don't have to write out my multiples here, because if I do, I would write 3, 6, 9, 12. And then for 6, I would start off with 6. So already my least common multiple is going to be 6. So if your numerator in your original equation, if your denominator can go into your other denominator equally, that larger number, that 6, is already your least common multiple. It's going to be your common denominator, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and write a 6 here. Remember I told you it's going to stay 6 consistently. That 3 had to become a 6 somehow. 3 times 2. What you do to the bottom, you're going to do to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. Now, this next one, I don't have to do anything to it because it's already a 6. This fraction is just going to carry over here, okay? You don't have to do anything with it. I don't have to multiply it by anything because it's already a 6. We need our numbers to be a 6, okay? Then 4 plus 1 is 5. I'm not going to do 6 plus 6 is 12. I'm going to stay consistent throughout, and I'm going to get 5/6. Now, is 5/6 in the simplest form? Yes, because 5 cannot go into 6 equally, and 5 is a prime number. Anytime you end with a prime number in your numerator, it's automatically simplified. So 5/6 is your answer to number 2. Now let's try a subtraction one. And this is number 10, 3/4 minus 1/6. Now with this one, again, this is what I was talking about earlier. You can do 3 times 6 is 18 and have that common denominator. And you can do 4 times 6 is 24. But there's a number that is a least common multiple. And you don't have to do a whole bunch of simplifying at the end. If you went ahead and did 4 times 6 here and got 24 as your common denominator, you're going to have some large numbers here. And you're going to have to simplify at the end. We try to avoid that by writing out our multiples and finding the least common multiple. It's going to help us simplify way much easier at the end, okay? So for 4, I have 4, 8, 12, 16, and I'm going to stop at 20. For 6, I have 6, 12, 18, and I'm going to stop at 24. Now I could have gone ahead and done 24 here, and that would have been a common multiple, but we're looking for a least common multiple, the smallest common number that's the same, and it's going to be our number 12 here. Circle it. I like to write the number 12 here. And I'm going to have 12 minus 12 here. Now, how did 4 become 12? How does this fraction 3/4, this denominator, going to be the same here, 12? Well, you can either count 1, 2, 3, or you automatically know 4 times 3 is 12. So I'm going to multiply my denominator by 3 to get 12. What you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. If I'm multiplying the bottom by 3, I'm going to multiply the numerator by 3 and get 9. Okay? And then how does 6 become this 12? How many times can 6 go into 12? You automatically know that it's 2 times, or you can come back and count down here. 1, 2. So I know how to multiply 6 times 2 to get 12. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. 1 times 2 is 2. And all you do, again, keep your denominators the same here. All you have to do here is subtract. Remember, don't add. A lot of people get confused because they've been doing a whole bunch of addition. They're going to try to add here and get 11. No, 9 minus 2 is 7/12. Now, was this simplified? Yes. Why? Because 7 is a prime number. 7 cannot go into 12 equally. So the answer to number 10 is 7/12. I'm going to do a couple of more. We're doing about 5 of them. And I would really only recommend you do questions 1 through 16. I'm not worried about 7 through 22 on page 223. So that gives you 16 questions. We're doing 5, so that really only gives you 11 questions you have to do on your own. Number 13 is 5/9 minus 1/6. Write out our multiples here, or you can go ahead and do 9 times 6 is 54 and have that as your common denominator and do the same things that we've been doing, multiplying it by the number to get 54. Once again, if you do that, you can have a lot of simplifying to do at the end. So it's easier just to write out your multiples until you find the least common multiple. Okay, so I have 6, 12, 18. I'm going to stop there because I automatically know, me knowing my 9's going to go into 18. I don't have to keep writing this out, okay? I already found my least common multiple here. Now, if you would have kept going, you would have gotten 36 up here because 6 times 6 is 36. And then you would have gotten 36 over here. 9 times 4 is 36. So there's even a smaller one than 54. Okay, but 18 is the easiest one. That's the least common multiple. I'm going to circle it. Then I'm going to do 18 minus 18. 9 can go in 18 2 times. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So it gets a little bit easier once you do more practice on these. 5 times 2 is 10. 6 can go in 18 how many times? I know it's 3 times. So in case you don't know your 6s very well, come back to your where you wrote your multiples out. 1, 2, 3. Multiply this by 3, the denominator by 3. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. 1 times 3 is 3. We're going to stay consistent. Keep our denominator the same the whole way through. And then we're just going to subtract the top. 10 minus 3 is 7. Is this simplified? Yes, it is. Why? 7 is a prime number. 7 cannot go into 18. So the answer to number 13 is 7/18. And the last one we're going to do is number 16. 5/6 minus 3/4. You know, you can always go back to your paper. What if you're like, oh, I already did a 6 and a 4, I think. And what I found on number 10, that my common denominator is going to be 12. So I don't have to do all this work again. I automatically know that 4 and 6 is 12. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that out here. Instead of doing all that work all over again, I just refer back to my work that I've already done. Or if you want to go ahead, keep it consistent, you can write out your multiples again here. But you are going to get 12. 12 minus 12 equals 12. Keeping it consistent throughout. My denominator and my bottom number staying consistent. 6 can go into 12 2 times. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So I'm going to multiply 5 times 2 and get 10. 4 can go into 12 3 times. So what you do to the denominator, you're going to do to the numerator. 3 times 3 is 9. I stayed consistent with my denominators here. I just have to subtract now. 10 minus 9 is 1. Is this simplified? Yes. Why? Anytime you end with a 1 in your numerator, it is automatically simplified. You can't go any smaller than that in a fraction. So 1/12, 100th, 1/100th, 1/50th, 1/1000th, anytime, that's simplified. Anytime you have a 1 in your numerator, it's already simplified. You don't have to go smaller. So your answer to number 16 is 1/12. Okay? So this is just adding and subtracting fractions. We were finding that we were adding and subtracting and simplifying. We didn't really have a lot of simplifying to do. Why? Because we went ahead and wrote our multiples here and found our least common multiple. Okay? So if you have any questions, remember you can email me, call me. You can request a meeting on Google Meet. I hope you guys have a good day, and I will have another video up for you soon. Thank you.